Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome those of you who are in this auditorium, which frankly is amazing and a lot more cognitively dissonant than I thought it was going to be, and the many more of you that are online. So we're now beginning our program for this Precision Medicine Conference. I'm going to make a few remarks before we enter the meat of our program proper. In 1899, Henry George Plimmer, who was then a lecturer of pathology and bacteriology at St. Mary's Hospital Medical School, said in a short address targeted towards the trainees, I quote, "You will have to acquire, too, for any success to be given to you, an accurate knowledge of human nature. And you will find that it is quite as important for the doctor to know what kind of patient the disease has for host, as to know what sort of disease the patient has for a guest." And this perspective, what kind of patient the disease has for a host, is really what we try to capture, those of us who labored on the precision medicine report that the National Academy of Sciences put out in 2011, perhaps with less eloquence than Dr. Plimmer. That is, we tried to put in place a research agenda that asks the question, who are you? And where does who you are situate you in the intersection of environmental exposures, clinical history, family history, genomic sequence, gene expression, and epigenetic signature, just to mention a few of the data modalities. Understanding that allows us to understand what else to expect in a given individual. What else to expect? That's a diagnosis. If I diagnose you with X, what are the other things that you can expect? And prognosis, what to expect in the future of someone like you. And individualized therapy, based on who you are, what's the best therapy. However, there's also a risk in precision medicine, done poorly or ignorant ways. It can put you in a box that might superficially pertain to you and therefore misguide the treatments you get. Worse yet, those boxes, which, to break my metaphor, I represent in this diagram by Rachel Eastwood as circular boxes, those boxes may be perpetuated by the medical profession through inertia or perhaps less benign processes. But here's the good news. We're in the 21st century where we do not need these clumsy and poorly fitting boxes. We have computers and machine learning techniques that can find where you truly are situated in the multidimensional space that is required to capture enough of your individuality to ensure that you get personalized care. But obviously, just throwing computers at data sets is not enough and can even lead to more inadequate or biased care, as you'll hear about later today in the symposium. And in this 7th year of our Precision Medicine Conference, we're going to revisit the same framework, but with renewed urgency as it pertains to race and ethnicity, with all the societal overlay and concern that I know I do not need to remind this audience of. We are extremely fortunate to have with us today leaders in the field who have thought deeply about how precision medicine can be made more effective and more relevant without ignoring race and ethnicity, but also not oversimplifying the context or solutions so as to avoid making inaccurate and even harmful diagnostic and therapeutic decisions. You'll be hearing from them shortly. So rather than inadequately summarize their views, I'll restrict my remaining comments to thanks. First of all, my thanks to the sponsor of this event, Takeda Pharmaceuticals, Genentech, Metadata, Merck, and Pfizer. When I reached out to these companies and individuals there, not only did I not have to ask twice, but they chided me. Why had I not reached out sooner? Why had we not done a conference on this topic earlier? And so I was delighted and somewhat surprised that in many ways, some of these companies were ahead of the curve relative to what we're talking about today. Also, my thanks to Dean Daly, whose remarks you'll be hearing from shortly. He's made it clear to all of us that promoting diversity and a medical system that provides the best of health for all is his priority. Finally, my thanks to Ms. Samantha Lemos, who organized this whole event, and without which we would all be that much less the wiser, and at lunch, that much the hungrier. So thank you very much, Samantha. So, you see before you the agenda, and I just want to make sure you have the highlights. We're going to have the opening remarks from Dean Daly. We're then going to have our opening keynote. We'll then have the first panel, and then there'll be a lunch break. Then there'll be a second panel, a break, a third panel, and then a closing keynote. And with that, I'm going to cede the platform to hear some remarks from Dean Daly.